Boring dates versus fun, playful dates. What's the difference? What can you do? How can you take a boring date and turn it around and make it more fun, more playful? That's what I'm going to talk about today. Let's get into it. It's Mike here from Art of Alpha. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. You can also grab the Bumble Starter Guide down below. But the other day I was talking to my friend and we were talking about boring dates and how to make them more fun, more playful, and just a better time for you and for her. So a lot of times you're sitting there on the date and you're like, hey, what do you like to do for fun? And then she's like, oh, I like to go hiking. And then you're like, oh, that's cool. I don't really hike that much, but it must be nice this time of year to go hiking. And she's like, yeah, the weather, I mean, it's really nice. And you get stuck in this boring, logical, back and forth conversation. And how can we break out of that? What can we do? So I'm just going to give you 3 good ways to flip that around. If you're stuck in boring, logical conversations and you don't know how to move it forward, you don't know how to make the date more fun, more playful for you and for her, then these are 3 things that are going to help. All right, the first one. This one is very, very important. This will change your entire ability to flirt, your entire dating life. And what it is, it's usually referred to as role play. I'm gonna put some text over here, text conversation, and it'll show you what I mean by the role play. It's kind of like joking around, like you and her do something together. So she opens me with, hey Michael, what does doctor approved entail? Because in my profile I say doctor approved. And I say that I smell good and don't have rabies. She says, wow, all the qualities look for in a man. And then what do? I go to a role play that we're married, we're gonna go on a honeymoon, we're going to do something. So that is the role play. You can use this texting, you can use it on a date, you can use it anytime you're interacting. You say, oh, we're gonna do something together. It's kind of like a hypothetical. She says, wow, all the qualities look for in a man. And I said, we should probably start planning our honeymoon. I'm thinking Bali, but open to other options. And I say, that's just the appetizer. We're definitely crossing 3 or 4 places off the bucket list. So there, it's just a role play. We both know we're not going on a honeymoon. We're just joking. And because we're joking, it makes it way more fun, way more playful. You can do so many different things from here to make it more interesting, the conversation a lot more interesting. She says, count me in. Perfect. And I say, perfect. We'll meet up in real life sometime soon to discuss further. So now I go to the role play like, oh, we're getting married. We're going on a honeymoon. So now when I meet her in real life, I can go like, hey, it's my wife. Like, I've known you forever. Hey, it's good to see you. Like, I can keep the role play that we're married or we're planning the honeymoon. So I can keep that role play going. And she says, sounds like a plan. And then I wait a day. I think I was busy doing something. But again, I say, hi, wifey. She says, hey, babe. So again, just continuing that role play. What's on your agenda for the evening? Not sure what I'm getting into. How about you? And I say, I'm out with a friend at the moment, but I'll be free around 7:30 and you're invited. I'm out 7:30, you're invited. So instead of being like, hey, what are you up to? Hey, do you want to meet me? Do you want to do this? I just say, I'm going to be out. You're invited. So it's a good way to be kind of like I'm doing something already. And then you're invited to the fun that I'm already having. I'm already going to do something and you're invited. So she sends me her number. You can do a role play literally with anything. You have endless options for a role play and just something, you don't have to use this. I'm just another example. Say you're on a date and you're at a restaurant eating with a girl on a date like that. You can say, hey, how is the food? And if she's like, oh, it's all right. And be like, yeah, I give it like 2 stars. And you can say, you know what we should do? We should like become restaurant critics or food critics, and then we can like start a blog and like travel the world and just like critique food. So now I'm doing a role play, and then you can then you can transition from that role play, like, oh, we're gonna become like these food bloggers, and me and you are gonna critique food, like something like that. And then you can say, you should try my cooking sometime. I have this secret recipe, and you'd be like, I can't tell you what's in it, but the secret recipe, I should make it for you sometime. It's the best dessert anyone's ever had. It's the best. It's a secret family recipe. And I actually have that in my profile on Bumble. I say I have the secret recipe, and then girls message me about it all the time. So it works great. So you can say, oh, I have the secret recipe. You should try to critique my cooking. You should critique. And then you say, you know what we should do? Why don't I go make it for you right now? Or we should hang out sometime and cook, or we should. So now you're leading her back on the second date, or leading her back to either your place or her place, or whatever you guys want to do. But you can use that food transition to be like, yeah, I know this recipe and let me cook it for you sometime. So now you can see how role plays, you can now lead in a direction that you want. So you can take any role play. I'm not saying use that restaurant critique thing. I'm just giving you options, giving you a better example of how it works. But be creative. You can use role plays with anything. It's basically you and her doing something, and then the idea is then now you're doing something and you're transitioning. So for the girl where I said the honeymoon thing, I could say, hey, why don't you come over and we'll plan our honeymoon, and then we'll go out and get drinks or whatever it is. So now I can use that role play and transition off of that. Thing to make a date more interesting and not boring is you want to ask better questions. So instead of, oh, what do you do? Oh, what do you like to do for fun? Stuff like that. You want to learn to ask better questions, open-ended questions. Make her think. Google good questions to ask people, good questions to ask girls on dates, and just have more interesting, more in-depth questions. And a really good one that's really going to make the date better and more interesting is if you say, what's something adventurous that you have done? And this is going to lead to the third point. But if you just ask, like, what's something adventurous you've done? What's something crazy or wild or interesting? So now you're framing it, you're setting it up. If she says, oh, I haven't really done much, like in the last month, nothing interesting, then you can say, all right, we should change that right now. We should do something crazy, do something memorable. Let's make this date memorable and a little wild. So now if you're going, if you're saying, let's do something adventurous, if you're asking her what's something adventurous she's done, and she's done nothing, now you can say, oh, we should do something. And like, you could be like, we should kiss right now, like on this first date or whatever. You can use your imagination, but you can do anything with that. So you can do something adventurous. Like, we should get on these tables right now, and then she'll like start dancing, and she'll probably start laughing. And then from there, you're making it more playful and fun, and it changes the whole dynamic of the date. It's not boring. And for the last point, it is going to be, you need to have stories. So just to recap the first one, role play. So you want to get good at role playing and like you and her doing something together with a role play. The second is you want to ask better questions, and one of those is, what's something adventurous that you have done? The third, she's going to maybe have a story of something adventurous that she's done. And what do you need? You also need a story. You should have at least 3 good stories that you can go to at any time. So I have a few stories of traveling and things that I've done, but you want to have at least 3 good stories that you can just use at any time. Something adventurous you've done, something crazy, something exciting. So pick or have 3 good stories that you can always, that you know that you can use that are good stories. So if you say, what's something adventurous that you have done? She tells you something, and then she's going to say, what's something adventurous that you've done? You have to be ready. Tell more stories. So a way to make the date more fun and more playful and not so boring is tell stories. So you should be telling stories about you, because the stories have emotion, they have energy, they change the vibe, they're more fun. So you want to get good at stories and telling stories. That way your date is a lot better. And you always want to transition to these different stories and lead them in a direction that you want them to go. So if you're on a date, what is your plan? What do you want to do? Do you want to see her again on a second date? Do you want her to come over? Do you want to go over to her place? These are all things that you have to figure out and decide, and then use the role play and the stories and the other techniques or the other conversation skills and things that you can do that way to lead the conversation, to lead the date, to move it forward in whatever direction you want. So hopefully you found that video helpful. Leave a comment down below. Follow me on Instagram. Help me get to almost 700 subscribers. We need 7 more right now. So help me get to 700 subscribers, and leave a comment down below. Any questions, I'll answer them for you guys. It's Mike, Art of Alpha. See you next time.